We're done. Yeshaya continues the 15th chapter with his prayers, I shouldn't say his prayers, his prophecies for the nation. And today we turn to a nation that we know historically as the Jewish people. It's not like we had in the last two chapters, the Babylonians, Bavel, who we really don't know much about at this point historically in terms of the book of Isaiah. Today, chapter 15 begins, Masa Moab, the Moab pronouncement or the Moab burden. Ki belel shudar ar Moab, nidma ki belel shudar kir Moab nidma. Oh, in the night Ar was sacked, Moab was ruined. In the night Kir was sacked, Moab was ruined. So here, those two places are Moabite cities. That's what those places are. And this is a pronouncement that's being done because Sancherev, who almost destroys all of Israel, and he surrounds Jerusalem and is chased away. Before that, he's going to attack the Moabites. Continuing, and then we'll discuss it just in generally. Allah habayit v'divon habamot levechi al nevo v'al meidba Moab yelil b'chorosh karcha kol zakein grua. He went up to the temple to weep. Divon went to the outdoor shrines. Over Nevo and Medeba, Moab is crying on every head is baldness. Every beard is shorn. Right? Moab went up to high places to weep in their temples, but they have been destroyed. Their people have been killed. Their cities have been laid desolate. Bachutzotav chagru sak al gagoteha uverchovoteha kula yelil yored babechi. In its streets, they are clothed with sackcloth. On its roof, in its squares, everyone is wailing. Tears are streaming down from everybody all over. And this is a phrase we have in Eicha, right? Eini yarda dami. The same sort of phrase. My eyes are yored. Our tears are coming down. It's almost like I can't stop it. Here it's yorad bebechi, but it's a very similar place. And what it's showing in many ways is it's everywhere. There's no place to hide for the Moabites. In the cities, when they go up to their temples, which are on top of the mountains, in the streets, on the roofs, in the squares, everybody is crying. Vatizak cheshbon ve'el alei ad yahatz nishma kolam. Al kein chalutzei Moab yariu nafsho yir'alo. Cheshbon and El alei, more Moabite cities. Sichon, back in the time of the Torah, is associated with the city of Cheshbon. Sichon was defeated in battle by Moshe all those generations ago. Their voices carry to another place, to Yahatz, and the Moabites, their troops shout. His body is convulsed. They are just completely destroyed. Everybody, the armed men of Moab, are crying out in battle because everyone is mourning the destruction of their country, the destruction of their city, the destruction of their civilization. And now comes an important and an interesting verse here, where Yeshaya says as follows. We're in verse 5. Libi limoav yizak biricheha ad soar eglat shilishia ki ma'alat haluchit bibchia alebo iderech choranayim za'akat shevar yeor eru. My heart cries out for Moab. His fugitives flee down to Tsoar, right? And mentioning different places, to Eglat Shalashayim. They ascend to Luchit. They ascend with weeping on the road to Choranim. They raise a cry of anguish, right? There are different ways. There are those who want to read this verse and say Yeshaya here is saying what the Moabites are saying at that time. That some people want to say it that way and understand it that way. That's what they're saying. But it seems my heart cries out for Moab is that this prophet of Israel is crying out for the destruction of the Moabites, even though Moab has long been an enemy of Israel. Moab has a complicated relationship with Israel. Moab and Ammon, here we're talking about the Moabites, are descendants of Lot. They are, all right, Avram's nephew. So in a sense, they are family members. We know the story of Ruth, even though we have not yet gotten to that. Ruth is from Moab, right? Naomi, Elimelech, they go to Moab. Naomi comes back without her kids. Her sons are dead. Her husband's dead, comes back with this Moabite woman who marries this very wonderful man, Boaz, and they have a great grandchild named David, named King David. So the Moabites have a very important place in our history. But even as they have that important place, David massacres the Moabites. And we discussed that in the book of Shmuel. I think it was in the 8th chapter. Why is it? And so we have this complicated relationship. And even though there is this complicated relationship, Yeshaya says, my heart cries out for Moab. Just because we're suffering doesn't mean that I can't cry out for them. Right? I feel for them, even though they are our enemy. They've suffered, and we should understand it. And that's very, very relevant when we think about the last number of years with Syria, who's been for many years a very complex and difficult enemy of the Jewish state of Israel. But when Syria is having a civil war and decimation and destruction and killing of innocent civilians and refugees, right? That's like what it's talking about in this verse. His fugitives flee down to Tzoar. You know, all the stories, the refugees, the boats that capsize, so the death, the destruction. We're not supposed to take joy in that. It should be that our hearts cry out for the Moabites, and so too for, in our day and age, the Syrians. Let's continue with the chapter. Kimei nimrim mishamot yihiyu, ki yavesh chatzir kulo deshe yerek lo haya. The waters of Nimrim are desolate. The grass is seared, right? There's nobody's watering it, and there's no water, so it's seared. All the herbs are gone. The vegetation is vanished. Right? This is the idea. It's being laid to waste. It's gone from green to brown. There's no life. And Rashi says that blood has fallen and mixed in with it. I don't know what blood does to grass, and right? So we can understand this as being literal. We can understand it as being a lack of life, but it's demonstrating the devastation. Al kain yitra asa ufekudatam al nachal ha'aravim yisaum. Therefore, the gains that they've made in their stores, they carry to the wadi, to the willows. That's where they're carried off to. So, right, the destruction, death, and everything that's happened, it's the end. It's the end, and it's the destruction. And Rashi makes a very interesting comment here. He talks about really like the history going back to Avraham and Lot and Sodom, and all the way the battles between the 5 and the 4 kings with Amraphel, and what Avram did for Lot, and nevertheless the Moabites didn't come and help the Jews when they were coming into Israel and when we were besieged, and so he's saying that it is a destruction that's being wrought to them because of their treatment of Israel, which would sort of fit in with the larger theme in these chapters. It's not just that Sargon or Sancheiriv, the Assyrian kings, are just hungry and want more power and more war and want more spoils, and while that be true, it's also understood that the Moabites are being destroyed in the same way that the Israelites were destroyed because of their terrible behavior, because the Israelites, their worship of idols, and the Moabites here, because they should have had they should back Bnei Yisrael. They're their cousins. They're there because of Avraham. They're there because of us. And yet they mock us. They laugh. They don't come to our help and our assistance. And so Rashi, I think, is putting it in that sort of similar fashion. Continuing with 2 more verses, 8 and 9. Ki hikifa haze'akad gvul Moab ad eg layim yilalata uve'er elim yulalta. The cry has come out. It's gone all over the country, all the way to Egalim. They are crying. Even at Be'er Elim, they're crying. And so these are places that sort of border, that are outside of Moab, but they see the destruction that has happened to their neighbors, and everybody is crying. Kimei Dimon Maludam. The waters of Dimon are full of blood. Ki ashit al Dimon nosafot lefletat Moab, aryeh ulesherit adama. The waters are full of blood. Water has been added to Dimon, but it's drenched with the blood, but there's water there for some of the refugees, with soil for its remnants. So there's blood, there's destruction. That's what's happened here. But there may be some sort of pleta, there may be some survivors, there may be some who are able to remain here. There are different ways of reading this verse. Is it talking about the Moabites, or is it talking perhaps about Bnei Yisrael, that it's our survivors who will see this? The Moabites, they don't have any survivors. They don't have anybody who's going to remain. And so different ways of understanding these two last words. This whole prophecy about Moab will continue into the next chapter, but it's, again, these are very difficult chapters, and right, when we think about this chapter, I said it 2 chapters ago, to me it has a lot of sort of Holocaust imagery, or what we think about the Holocaust. We think about, we talk about European soil, the German soil, the soil of Poland. People would never step foot in those countries because it's filled with Jewish blood, and why would I want to go there? And that's the image that's left for me when reading this chapter, is the land that was formerly the land of the Moabites, which was green and vegetation. Now what is it? It's dirt, it's desolate, it's destruction, and it's filled with the blood from the Moabites' destruction by the world power, the Assyrian army. So we'll continue with that, and there'll be more about Moab. Tomorrow we'll look more into, there's some interesting historical documents from Misha, the king of Moab, who we discussed back in the Book of Kings, and we will look into that come tomorrow.